Hey Vanguard Lions, my name is Dr. Alex Lin, and I'm the chair of the Liberal Studies Department, and I've been at Vanguard since 2016. So, a question you're probably asking yourself is, who is this person? And second, what is Liberal Studies? Well, to answer that first question, probably the reason why you don't see me too much is that I teach majority liberal studies classes. And in general, there aren't too many liberal studies classes that you'll see within the curriculum. So, in other words, unless you're a liberal studies major, chances are you probably will never interact with me. And the second thing is, what is liberal studies? What is liberal studies? Do I have to be a liberal? Is that the study of liberals? What is that? So we get that all the time. So liberal studies just means more or less education. Our major is geared towards those who want to become teachers, who want to go into the education field. So, because you don't really know me, just some fun facts about myself. So, first off, I have a wife and two young daughters. My oldest is 6, the other one is 3. So, they're just right around that toddler age when they're starting school. And some other kind of fun facts about myself is that number one, I'm a huge pop culture nerd. In fact, I have a blog site. Blogs, does anybody have those anymore or know what that is? Well, blog are just sort of this long worded form of when you put a post. I know Twitter is like 240 words, but if you want to write an extensive something about a subject extensively, right, people have blogs. So I have this blog, I'm not kidding. It's called Alex Reviews Everything. So Alex Reviews Everything. So whether it's the latest movie or TV show, movies, books, games, you name it, I'll try to review it. So maybe you'll see my review on Beyonce's new album to Stranger Things, the new season 4 that dropped earlier this summer. Another kind of fun fact about myself is that I know I don't look like it, but I really enjoy, and one of my hobbies is cooking and baking. And I was never properly trained. I was never went to culinary school or anything like that. I'm purely just, looking at TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. So this is a fun thing I love to do, when you have kids and a family, right? Got to put some food on the table, right? So what brought me to Vanguard? Every faculty, every person here has their specialty. So I'll say that my passion, first and foremost, is education, right? And I had a lot of different kind of mixed experiences. I'm going to tell you about how, I've spent 10 years as a public school teacher. Now I'm at Vanguard teaching about education classes, right? But just even my formative years growing up, going to school wasn't, all positive, right? I would say that for the most part, I was a pretty average C plus student. When it came to school, I didn't like following the rules. I wasn't a good test taker. I didn't get good grades, right? A lot of teachers found me really annoying. So school wasn't really my thing. And so, and it's kind of interesting because people see myself like, hey, you just said you were a public school teacher, you became a full-time teacher, right? How did that came to be? And so one of the things that I try to instill in my students is that, hey, for myself, even though school wasn't something I was good at, right? I always sort of saw other students who excelled, but I saw myself as just being average. But I saw this kind of separate things, right? Whereas, I love to teach. I love the process of learning. These things don't seem to go hand in hand, but, they definitely can. So just to make sure to see that you're paying attention, what is Vanguard's mascot? Hey, Vanguard Lions. Yes, it's lions. Vanguard Lions. Now, when it comes to lions, right, what is the one word that is usually associated with lions? And that's courage, right? The courageous lion. And so I know I'm dating myself here, and I don't know if any of you know what The Wizard of Oz is. Maybe you know the updated version, right? The theatrical Broadway Wicked. So at least you have that reference point, right? But lion and coward seem to be synonymous, right? And so I'm just going to just really quickly recap. If you've ever seen Wizard of Oz, you can just ignore this part. But just to kind of get to the kind of the more relevant part, right? When we think about the Wizard of Oz, right? Dorothy befriends these 4 different characters, right? Scarecrow, Tin Man, and one of them is a lion. So the lion is complaining that he's lacking his heart, right? He's missing his heart, metaphorically, right? And the heart represents courage, right? And so they go on this long journey trying to find his heart, his courage, which is a pretty devastating thing for a lion because, they're all about being brave and being king of the animals, right? Lion King, all that jazz. So that's kind of innately that character, right? And so, yeah, spoiler alert, boom, boom, boom. They are visiting the wizard, right? The wizard is kind of this Grant Wisher, and when they go to the Wizard of Oz, right? What's kind of unexpected, right, was that he was a sham. None of this was real. The person, the guy, the wizard didn't really have any powers, right? And so, it was a big disappointment, right? But just to make a long story short, right, the lion did kind of realize through that journey, right, the courage was within him, right? And so when you think about this idea about courage, right, we always kind of believe that it's somewhere out there that we're reaching and it's somewhere unattainable, right? So whether it's going up with the courage to to talk to someone, right? We're nervous about something, or maybe it's some kind of job internship, right? All those things require a lot of courage, but in that story, right, we see that the lion did have courage, but it was just unlocked, right? He just didn't realize. So a Bible verse that really kind of resonates with me on this theme of courage. So this is Romans 8:26. Likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness, for we do not know what to pray for as we ought, but the Spirit Himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. So just my takeaway is that, courage is kind of vulnerability, right? Sometimes we don't see them as being kind of synonymous, vulnerability, humility, quote unquote weakness, right? But a lot of time that courage is through the acts of admitting things, right? Being vulnerable, asking for courage, right? That is an act of courage when you kind of think about it in the grand scheme of things. Now, when we think about courage, right, there's a lot of kind of things dressed up around it, right? When we think about courage, it's like, oh, we're thinking like scaling the Mount Everest, right? Or doing something like extreme, right? But courageous is one of those kind of funny things where, this is kind of my own experiences, where maybe I'm so scared about something, but we're not realizing that I had courage, right? And courage is one of those things where you realize that you kind of had it within you the whole time, and it wasn't just defined by one moment, but it was kind of sitting there the whole time, and you just didn't realize it. So maybe just use one example of myself. What do I mean by that? So think about myself personally, right? Right after college, right? And so I was always kind of consider myself as someone who is very kind of risk adverse, right? I'm not very, a risk taker, right? So in college and after college, right, this is kind of my pattern of my life, right? I love playing video games. I love being a homebody, just being very comfortable with my life, right? I would stay up till like 3 o'clock in the morning, playing Halo, wake up, it's like 3 o'clock, and then I go to Del Taco and then watch a Netflix, and then next day, right? That's kind of my life, right? And so even post college, right, I was kind of figuring out what I want to do with my life. And so one thing kind of moment was when I, talked to a friend. He lives in Japan, and he was like, "Hey, how about living overseas? Have you thought about that, right? Kind of expanding your horizons." And so I thought about it. I mean, I was really interested. I visited Japan before. I took Japanese in high school, watched anime, eat Japanese food, right? So for me, like it seemed like, hey, I want to do this, right? But at the same time, I was kind of scared because now I'm thinking long term. Hey, I'm uprooting my life in comfortable little old California and going to this foreign country. My Japanese is like decent, but it's not to that level. But I took that gamble anyways, right? So fast forward, I ended up in Japan, and I was just totally on my own, right? I had to really kind of figure things out, right? And so in that place, I really had to really stretch myself. I was so used to being comfortable and kind of used to the way things are. But in Japan, right, where not everybody speaks English, right, the culture is very different. I'm going out to people and like grunting, ooh, ooh, ah, ah, like trying to figure, try to ask for directions. Where's the restroom, right? How to get to this specific street, right? So I had to really, but throughout a whole experience, right, I had to really adult, right? Adulting is always kind of a scary word, but it really kind of, I had to kind of move forward like really, really fast. And so I had to have a schedule. My life had to be pretty much planned, right? Figure out the next train stop, the bus station schedule, right? I have to go to work, find food, right? I'm taking Japanese language classes. So my life became much more structured. And so for all that, it really benefited me. When I was talking about my former life where, yeah, I was kind of free flowing, I could do whatever I want. Japan really kind of shaped me into becoming more of a mature person, where I took responsibility. I learned how to talk to people because, frankly, no one really understood English, and so I had to learn to communicate with people who just we didn't have that common language. So I had to be very innovative and creative in the way I talk to people, right? Try to make as many friends as I can. And also, too, I would say that I really developed a stronger connection with God. I mean, you never really kind of experience that unless you're in some kind of foreign country where maybe Christianity is not the status quo, the standard like in America. And so I found it was a pretty dark place spiritually. So I found a church, and knowing that if I'm going to survive in this really foreign area, I really need to rely on God. And, the other side of it too was that a lot of my students I interacted with, I was an English teacher. That was my main bread and butter to pay the rent and make a living in Japan. And so I was a teacher there. And so another opportunity kind of spread where now I was doing some kind of mission, ministering to these young Japanese students who are suffering from a lot of like suicide thoughts, right? Japan has one of the highest suicide rates in the world, right? And so I felt compelled to like reach out to them, right? Let them know about God. And so in that school world, right, it's different from the United States where now you can speak freely about God. And so I was able to, really kind of see God in their lives. And knowing that I'm seeing that impact and coming back here, right, I sort of helped me further that mission. So all this to say that courage can come in all sizes and shapes, right? It's not one ginormous defining moment and that's it. It ranges from the small to the big, right? So whether it's, we went up to a person, gave them some money, right? Or, we saw someone down the hallway and said hello, or maybe we picked up a new sport, right? We called someone that we knew kind of we had some beef with, and now we're trying to patch things up. I mean, it takes quite a bit of courage, right? To realize that we exercise courage, all throughout our lives, right? And so what also motivated me to become a teacher was knowing that there are a lot of students like me. I mean, you have your top achievers, the cream of the crop. They're going to a really good school. They're set for life, right? But what motivated me was the students like me who didn't find education that all engaging or school. And so that really kind of drove me as a teacher, right, to focus on those students, knowing that you can see much more measurable growth, right? It's not so much the B to the A students, but it's more like the D's to the C's and C to the B's. Like you can see tremendous growth. So that's what really kind of inspired me to go into the education field. I know in society-wise, there's definitely unequal access. So as a teacher, I always tell, students how much you can make a profound impact knowing that a lot of students come from lower income backgrounds, from broken families, right? And as a teacher, we can really put that impact on students. People don't realize that, when we think about teaching, right? When we think about being a teacher, we sort of think about, hey, your job is to make sure that kids know their ABCs and learn to add and subtract. Yes, I get that part. But beyond that, there's a lot of students are struggling with mental health. They need hope in their lives, right? They they come from families where there's a lot of violence and abuse and problems in the household, right? And so I felt that as a teacher, I can extend that hand and show them, hey, I care about you, right? Sometimes we think about preaching and evangelizing, right? We sort of think of have to directly pray for students, right? In the school world, because it's a public school, obviously you can't do that. You can't go to the podium and say, let's open the Bible to 3:16. You can't do that. But I think there's equally effective ways where you can minister to your students. In fact, they say schools are one of the biggest public mission fields in the world, right? And so as a teacher, right, I would show care, I would show kindness, right? Outside of school, I would pray for them, right? I could pray for their home situation. So just to recap our conversation here, just to say that courage is in all of us, especially you as a Vanguard student. When I see my students come to class, I know it took a great deal of courage to be in class. And not losing sight of the fact that not everybody has that opportunity to go to a school like Vanguard. And so for yourself, right, you really had to put in the discipline and effort to be here at Vanguard because, let's face it, you really value your education. And especially, you really value your relationship with God and being plugged into the Vanguard community. That says a lot. So with all that said, God has given you courage to realize whatever possibilities that you can imagine, whatever dreams that you have, God is going to be there. And all we have to do is try not to limit ourselves, right? To put a cap on it, knowing that, hey, God has already given us the courage to do whatever we want to do in life. Thank you.